I've been watching Kier Starmer recently, and I think the man is delusional. Here's one example.
But we know some basics. Putin's appetite for conflict and for chaos is already there, and it will only grow. And Russia is already menacing our skies, our waters, our streets, and our national security. And that's why I believe the fundamental task of politics right now is to take the tough decisions on security.
Sometimes when politicians talk, and they do tend to talk a lot in the media, giving speeches all the time on the news, and we reach a stage of saturation almost where we're punch drunk with the comments of politicians. It just goes on and on and on. And a lot of the time we can forget what they're saying, and sometimes politicians say things and it just flows away. It just drops off the edge of the cloud of nonsense that they talk. But in this instance, I think it's very, very important to analyse.
Putin's appetite for conflict and for chaos is already there, and it will only grow.
So it will only grow. His appetite for chaos and destruction. Okay, so what's that meant to mean? That's meant to mean we should be worried about that. We should be worried about the fact that because Russia's had a taste of this chaotic destruction, that's only going to feed the appetite of Mother Russia. And she's coming across Europe for us. She's coming, and it's feeding the appetite, and the appetite for this is only going to keep increasing and keep growing. And so we need to be extremely fearful.
And Russia is already menacing our skies, our waters, our streets, and our national security.
Threatening our skies, our waters, our streets, our national security. What complete and utter drivel. What he's attempting to do here is perhaps position some secret knowledge that he has. Oh, Russia's threatening our waters. Is there perhaps submarines off the coast somewhere monitoring the people walking on the beaches or something like that? Or they're watching ships pass by and they're monitoring and they're acting in a menacing way. They're menacing the skies as well. If you look up, you'll see lots of Russian planes flying around, menacing everyone, menacing the planes in the sky. They're acting in a very, very menacing way. And of course, if you walk down your high street, keep an eye out. There'll be Russians walking around and they'll be acting in a very menacing way. So there's a lot of menacing going on, particularly if you go for a swim at the beach, or perhaps you want to look up at a bird flying through the sky, or as you walk through your city centre, you need to be very, very aware that there's Russians around menacing everything that we're doing. I see. And they're threatening our national security. There's a war happening on the other side of the continent, and it's a long, long way away from anywhere that we're close to, but understand the point that it's all very menacing and it's all very dangerous.
And that's why I believe the fundamental task of politics right now is to take the tough decisions on security.
The fundamental job of our politicians right now is to do some of the following. First of all, keep our standard of living high. Look after the economy and make good decisions for the economy. Make good decisions for businesses in this country so there's lots of tax to spend on public services. Care about the NHS. Worry about the old people who've had quite a tough winter because you've just taken the winter fuel payment from them. Perhaps you might want to protect your own borders and stop the thousands and thousands of young men who appear to just wander into the country and get paid thousands of pounds for doing so. Perhaps you might want to confront the rat infestations that appear to be happening in major cities. While you're on there, you might want to stop young gangs running round major cities and on the rail network brandishing machetes and cutting each other up. Perhaps have a look at the state of crime, law and order generally in the country, and the stabbing epidemic and the violent crime epidemic that's happening everywhere, it would seem, perhaps you might want to kind of get the police arresting criminals and not kind of putting people in prison for Facebook posts. Perhaps there's 1,001 other things that really are fundamental to what politicians are doing right now. And perhaps, fundamentally, what it isn't is worrying about a conflict on the other side of our continent that's going to be resolved by the USA talking to the Ukraine people and the Russian people. That's what's going to happen. There's going to be a peace deal. There's no fundamental anything happening for us on the other side of the continent. What's fundamental right now is that our government focuses on caring for the people of this country and looking after the British people. Now, here is another example of Kier Starmer going off the reservation in Parliament.
We see clearly before us the test of our times, a crossroads in our history. I announced a deal that perfectly symbolises the new era. A partnership with Ukraine that allows them to use £1.6 billion of UK export finance.
The test of our times, a fundamental crossroads in history. Again, no, this is all complete and utter rubbish. This man is either delusional or he's lying to the British people because he might believe that we buy in to this complete drivel. We're not at a fundamental crossroads in our history. That's just untrue. Perhaps Ukraine is at a fundamental crossroad in their history. Perhaps even Russia is at a fundamental crossroad in their history. But this is all happening on the other side of the continent. We are not going through these historic times. That we may be going through a historic time in terms of the decline of our country. But we're not going through a historic time in terms of Ukraine or anything else of that nature. I think when you listen to what Kier Starmer's saying in public, I think he's either prepping the British people for some type of lunacy-like conscription, or he's just about to make commitments to put boots on the ground, which we don't have, or whatever it is that he's doing. Perhaps he's trying to deflect from the issues that are happening at home. Perhaps it's the case that he believes he's had a little bit of traction from our liberal elite media, who have heaped praise on him for being the bridge between America and Ukraine and Russia. The supreme diplomat, the supreme statesman. Perhaps he's actually himself bought into this nonsense. The truth is, all of this, worrying about what's happening on the other side of the continent, and this being, the most important thing that needs to be at the top of everyone's mind, because Kier Starmer's had a little bit of traction in the opinion polls, and the liberal media are fawning all over him and saying, "Oh, Mr. Starmer, you're such a fabulous wartime Prime Minister." This just goes to show this Westminster bubble, these people, they have no idea what people are thinking when they're watching this. And, I'm not sure about you, but for me, when I watch this stuff, this just further confirms to me that these people are all out of their minds, either delusional or drunk on power, or they believe we're buying into this rubbish. It just beggars belief, really. Anyway, thanks very much for your time.